is going on, everyone? My name is Jamon McKinney, but of course you can just call me Juice because that is my nickname. Welcome everyone to the Juice Alert, my show right here. If you have not subscribed to the Juice Alert already, be sure to do that right about now. You will not regret it. You can find the Juice Alert on YouTube as well as podcasting platforms. That includes Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that great stuff. If you enjoy this episode or any of my content, be sure to like, comment, do all that stuff, interact with me in the comments and things like that. And also tell your friends and family. But enough of that stuff right there. We have a jam-packed show today. Recently, I covered the AFC South and the NFC South, and now today we're heading towards the NFC West. We're going to preview the NFC West for the 2023 season, diving into all the crazy topics and just everything that involves the NFC West pretty much that I would like to cover right here, right now. But before I do get started, just one more thing. Please, everyone, follow me on social media. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on TikTok. All those things, all those links, and all those, hashtag handles or whatever you want to call them, they are in my bio for this episode, and you'll also see them on your screen if you're watching here on YouTube. Maybe take some time out of your day to just simply pause this episode and screenshot these handles, maybe jot them down really quickly. And like I said, just follow me on social media because I want to interact with you guys on social media, want to build that following up any way possible that I can interact with you people out there that take the time to support me. I'm going to do it in a heartbeat. So definitely interact with me on social media and follow me. Enough talking, though, about social media and things like that. The intro. Yeah, let's throw that, out the back door for now. Okay, let's dive into this show right here. Geno Smith was a very interesting topic last season in the NFL. Geno Smith, he was this highly touted guy coming out of West Virginia years ago, gets to the NFL, kind of falls flat on his face right out the gate, never really truly got going as an NFL starting quarterback. And boy, oh boy, did Geno Smith surprise a lot of people this year. I'm here to tell you right here, right now, Geno Smith's success as an NFL starting quarterback was not a fluke. It was not a fluke. Geno Smith is here to stay. I have a strong belief that the Seattle Seahawks are officially back in the Super Bowl conversation. And it's not just Geno Smith. They have a very good coaching staff led by Pete Carroll. I really like the weapons. I like the running backs. I think the defense is young and up and coming. But let's just stick to Geno Smith right here, right now, because he's a pretty hot topic. Like I said, the Seattle Seahawks essentially said goodbye to Russell Wilson. And I crushed them for trading Russell Wilson and kicking him to the curb. I said, no way, no how. It's a terrible move. You're potentially moving on from a Hall of Fame quarterback. I think Russell Wilson is a Hall of Famer at this moment in time, although his Hall of Fame status right now is kind of in jeopardy. But that's neither here nor there. I felt it was a terrible move, moving on from Russell Wilson. But round one of the breakup is in favor of the Seattle Seahawks regarding this Russell Wilson fiasco. It massively has favored Seattle. Seattle is no longer paying a crap ton of money for Russell Wilson. And they nailed several of their draft picks of recent. So they're a young team. They've got a quarterback in Geno Smith that seems to only be potentially getting better. Okay, and they're not paying him a whole lot of money compared to some of all these other quarterbacks. And I believe they found stability with Geno Smith. Patrick Mahomes was the 2023, or I should say 2022, NFL MVP, no doubt about it in my opinion. But Geno Smith was in that conversation. He was making incredible throw after incredible throw all season last year. There was one throw in particular versus the New Orleans Saints where he just threw that football up for grabs over 3 defenders, and it was a beautifully thrown football. This is a guy in Geno Smith that's only getting better in my eyes. He completed 70% of his passes last season, and this was not a dink and dunk offense. Geno Smith was actually throwing the football down the field and fitting the football into tight windows. And not to mention, Geno Smith is underrated as an athlete. He can run around a little bit. Geno Smith, underrated athlete at the quarterback position, like I said, because he can just move around and make plays if need be too. And a lot of people thought that Pete Carroll might be potentially, going with Drew Lock to be a starter last year. I was actually one of those people that felt, okay, we'll see what Drew Lock maybe can do. He's maybe going to get a shot. He was this highly touted guy coming out of Missouri, kind of flopped in Denver and gets another shot with Seattle. I wasn't the biggest Drew Lock fan, but if you were to tell me, okay, who's going to start? Is it going to be Drew Lock or Geno Smith? I would have bet on Drew Lock at that moment. And boy, oh boy, did Geno Smith make me look silly. And I will say, the Seattle Seahawks, they have a run game. They have an improved offensive line. They have the wide receivers. They have the defense. I believe in Geno Smith, and I believe in this experiment with the Seattle Seahawks regarding Geno Smith as well, because he has the team around him, and it seems like the way Geno Smith played this year, the way he helped elevate the Seattle Seahawks, a team that a lot of people thought was not going to do very well this season, he elevated them and helped them get to the playoffs. He was their leader. He was their spark plug, and he played great football. He was in the MVP conversation this past season. Again, Patrick Mahomes was easily my MVP this year. Jalen Hurts not too far behind. You could have maybe voted for Nick Bosa. Josh Allen was in the conversation as well. But Geno Smith was right with those guys. He had a case for the NFL MVP outside of the top guys like Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts. That's how good Geno Smith played this year. And I think that Geno Smith is only going to get better with the Seattle Seahawks. His success was not a fluke. And let's not forget, this is a guy in Geno Smith that was kicked to the curb by multiple NFL franchises, passed up, doubted, kicked to the curb, and now Geno Smith, all that motivation, all that pent-up frustration, all those long nights where he put in the work and improved on his game, it showed on the football field this year. And once again, Geno Smith said it. He said it even in week one after the Seattle Seahawks beat the Denver Broncos led by Russell Wilson. Geno Smith ain't wrote back yet. He didn't write back to those folks out there. So, again, doubters, Geno Smith didn't write back. And I'm excited to see what Geno Smith can do for the rest of his career. He is in his 30s. I don't know how long his prime is going to be or his best, or I don't know how many great seasons he quite has left in him, but only time will tell. And I'm very excited to see what Geno Smith can do. The question I want to answer today is, can you win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith as your starting quarterback? I believe you can win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith as your starting quarterback. As I said earlier, Geno Smith's success was not a fluke. And everyone keeps claiming, the NFL is going to have more film on Geno Smith. He's going to get exposed, not going to be able to duplicate what he did last year. I tend to disagree because people don't look at the other side of the spectrum. Yes, NFL teams now have more film on Geno Smith, and he's put himself back on the map to where teams are going to watch out for him. They're going to game plan for him, and they're probably going to respect him a lot more than they did a couple of years ago. But the thing is, Geno Smith gets the same type of film these other guys get as well. Who's to say that Geno Smith getting more experience going into his second season in the same offense, having another weapon at his disposal that the Seattle Seahawks drafted in Jaxon Smith-Njigba, being in that system for another year, getting more camaraderie with his offensive line. Who's to say that Geno Smith can't get better in his second year in the system? I think that we have to give Geno Smith the benefit of the doubt, just like we're giving the opposing defensive coordinators the benefit of the doubt that might be facing him eventually. And listen, people, this is not a Jimmy Garoppolo and Jared Goff situation. Two quarterbacks that were able to win a lot of games, for their respective teams in the NFC West a couple of years ago. Jared Goff got to a Super Bowl. Jimmy Garoppolo got to a Super Bowl. But they were just along for the ride. They were not the driving forces for their team. That team was led by the run game and the defense. And Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan were holding the hands of their quarterbacks all the way through. I saw Pete Carroll literally give Geno Smith the keys to the car, and he told Geno Smith, let's go out here and let's crank this thing up to 70, 80, 90, maybe even 100 miles an hour if we need to. Because guess what, Geno Smith? I trust you, and you're talented enough to make plays. And that's what Geno Smith did. He was throwing the football down the field. He was making complex reads and changing plays of the line of scrimmage. You know, he was not having his hand held by Pete Carroll, at least not, throughout the entire season. Maybe early in the season, Pete Carroll kind of held his hand a little bit and said, okay, Geno, this is how we're going to do things. Let's try to see what you do well. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? But Geno Smith grew past that point last season at some point, I believe. And let's not forget, let's look at some recent Super Bowl champions. Tom Brady, doubted at Michigan, doubted once he got to the NFL, was not a first-round pick. Aaron Rodgers slipped all the way to number 24 in his draft class. 24 selections were made before Aaron Rodgers. Russell Wilson, a former Seattle Seahawk, doubted at NC State, doubted at Wisconsin. How many teams passed on Russell Wilson? I can't even count them off the top of my head. It's so many. He was a third-round pick. Geno Smith, like I said, been doubted, had to work hard, wasn't handed anything. This is not a fluke. I do believe you can go out there and win a Super Bowl with Geno Smith as your starting quarterback because I believe he has the talent and I believe he has the motivation to go out there and try to compete for a Lombardi trophy from here on out. That's how I believe in Geno Smith. I want to talk about Kyle Shanahan. I'm just going to say it right now. I believe Kyle Shanahan is being overrated by many people. Now, again, is Kyle Shanahan an excellent coach? Absolutely. But also in the same boat, he's overrated a little bit, at least by the media. Why do people have to feel the need to elevate Kyle Shanahan into elite status? It just seems like, Kyle Shanahan has to be in these top 5, top 10 lists. And I don't think that's necessarily the case because let's look at Kyle Shanahan's resume really under the microscope, okay? Let's look. 6 years coaching as a head coach in the NFL. 3 of those 6 seasons, Kyle Shanahan's had a losing record. What? Losing record? Mike Tomlin's never had a losing record. Sean McVay has only had 1 losing season. And that was last year when the Los Angeles Rams were dealing with a bunch of injuries. So you're putting him in the elite status category when half of the seasons Kyle Shanahan has coached in the NFL, and we're talking about a pretty sizable sample size. He's had below 500 seasons, losing records. And Kyle Shanahan has not been able to win the big game yet. Again, like I said earlier, well, not even earlier, but in previous episodes, the top 5 head coaches, in my opinion, all of them that were on my list, they've won a Super Bowl. And I think that that's a fair thing to evaluate these coaches with. I really do firmly believe that. I believe that the guys that have won Super Bowls, they should be held in that higher status. Until you get to the big game and win the big game, I can't automatically put you in the elite category. Now, again, a guy like Mike McCarthy's won a Super Bowl, and I never considered Mike McCarthy an elite head coach. So it's not just me saying, oh, you got to win a Super Bowl to be an elite head coach, because that's not everything there is to it, okay? Look at a guy like Sean McDermott, has had a great quarterback. He hasn't been able to win a Super Bowl. That's one of the reasons why I can't put a guy like Sean McDermott, who's won a bunch of games, in the elite category yet, because he hasn't gotten over that hump, and he's had a great quarterback. Kyle Shanahan's had great rosters, okay? And Not to mention, I'm just going to say right here, right now, here's the head coaches I have over Kyle Shanahan: Andy Reid, Sean McVay, Mike Tomlin, Doug Peterson, okay, Pete Carroll, Nick Sirianni, Sean Payton, Bill Belichick, and Brian Daboll. Those guys, to me, are undoubtedly ahead of Kyle Shanahan. And you may scoff your head at Brian Daboll. Daniel Jones was a failing student before Brian Daboll came to New York City and helped the guy out. He turned Daniel Jones from a failing student to a passing student. Now, again, I don't know how many more years Daniel Jones is going to pass this class, because I don't think Daniel Jones is all that talented, but you get the point that I'm trying to make, okay? So, look, when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, I get it. The play calling is there. The creativity is pretty much there. Kyle Shanahan does a lot of things well, but until Kyle Shanahan, to me, wins the big game, I cannot put him in the elite conversation. I just can't. Not over the 9 to 10 guys I listed, because Belichick has been to multiple Super Bowls and won multiple Super Bowls. Sean Payton won a Super Bowl. Nick Sirianni was just in the Super Bowl, and he's just getting started. Pete Carroll has won a Super Bowl. He, honestly, just like Brian Daboll, turned Daniel Jones into a passing student when he was a failing student. Pete Carroll deserves a lot of credit for helping Geno Smith improve his grades as well. So when it comes to Shanahan, I think the next step for him is just his play calling in big spots and his ability to manage the clock better. I think Kyle Shanahan's clock management is not that good. It's cost the 49ers some games in the past. I think that's one area that he can work on. Again, I have nothing against Kyle Shanahan. I think he's an excellent head coach. And if he wins a Super Bowl this year, I won't be completely shocked, because the 49ers have a great roster, and Kyle Shanahan is a darn good head coach, and he's really good at what he does. But, however, until Kyle Shanahan elevates and continues to put together a more sustained body of work, and particularly potentially wins a Super Bowl, I cannot say Kyle Shanahan is in the elite category. I believe Kyle Shanahan is just a tad bit overrated at this very moment. I want to talk about Trey Lance. Trey Lance, I mentioned at one point, he has a chance to be the San Francisco 49ers version of Patrick Mahomes. Now, again, Patrick Mahomes is this superstar quarterback, already to me a top 10 quarterback of all time. I never said Trey Lance was going to be Patrick Mahomes. However, what I meant by that take was this. The Chiefs had a great roster, a great head coach, but with Alex Smith as their quarterback, there was always a ceiling. And with Jimmy Garoppolo, with the 49ers, they won games. They even got to a Super Bowl at one point. But it was very clear at some point, Jimmy Garoppolo was either going to hold the San Francisco 49ers back, or he was never going to be good enough to go toe-to-toe with elite quarterbacks when he needed to. And that's been proven to be true. And not to mention, he has had some durability issues as well. So to me, because of Trey Lance's skill set and talent, I believe, and I still to this day believe this, I believe that he can be the key piece to the puzzle that finally helps the 49ers win a Super Bowl. Because the 49ers, they just need an above average quarterback that can, at some point, just flip that switch. Hey, we need to get together a drive because we're in trouble and Patrick Mahomes is scoring on our defense. We need to stop the bleeding. Trey Lance, can you come to the rescue? I think Trey Lance, at some point, if he develops, he can be that guy, okay? Trey Lance, his ability to really throw the deep ball and stretch out defenses is really, really what impressed me when he was in college. And he can move around a lot too. But Trey Lance so far, it's been a rocky start for him, and I think the 49ers definitely are ready to win a Super Bowl right now. So the fact that Trey Lance got hurt and the fact that he just honestly needs much more reps than he's gotten, like the fact that Trey Lance, has barely played any games in college. I think he was a one-year starter at North Dakota State, and then he gets to the NFL and he's gotten injured, has barely played. This guy needs reps. Brock Purdy started a ton of games in college, and you saw he was NFL ready because of his talent, obviously, but also because He just is a way more seasoned guy as far as football experience. So the thing about Trey Lance is Trey Lance must now develop at a rapid pace for the 49ers because the 49ers have Brock Purdy on their roster. They have Sam Darnold. And if Trey Lance flops or he can't win games this year, it could be over for Trey Lance. And I understand that it takes time to be a great franchise quarterback. You need to live in the film room. You need experience. But the thing is, the 49ers are ready to win right now. Are they truly ready to allow Trey Lance to go through his growing pains, to really go out there and just be the guy? I'm not really so sure at this moment. So when it comes to Trey Lance, as I said about Desmond Ridder a couple weeks ago, the quarterback for the Atlanta Falcons now, the 49ers have a roster to win right now. Just like I think the Falcons have a pretty decent team right now to win. If you can't make things work right here, right now, I don't think the 49ers are going to have room for Trey Lance. Again, I would invest in Trey Lance. I would be patient because I believe if you're patient with Trey Lance, the final product he's going to give you is going to be pretty great. But I'm not the decision maker for the 49ers. So all I'm doing is pointing out the reality of the situation. The reality of the situation is it a little bit unfair that Trey Lance got hurt and that he barely started in college? Absolutely, it's a little bit unfair. Trey Lance deserves an opportunity to go out there and truly, get a chance to prove himself. But again, in the NFL, there's other guys out there that are willing to take your spot. And there's other very talented guys out there like Brock Purdy, who started a ton of games in college, and he seems like he's got it all figured out right now. Sam Darnold will kind of see, but the point is, Trey Lance, it's a big offseason for him, and it's a time where he needs to come in and he needs to show the 49ers that, hey, I can be a quick learner. I can really get this. I don't know what Trey Lance's future is with the 49ers. I believe in his talent. However, in order for Trey Lance to stick around with the 49ers, he's going to have to grow up very, very fast. And again, maybe he flops in San Francisco and eventually they maybe trade him to a destination where there's better, opportunity for him as far as development of his career. But again, you never know if you're going to get another opportunity just because in the NFL, it's a business. And ultimately, that could be the case for Trey Lance to where, unfortunately, he maybe just gets injured and maybe we never hear from him again. But, we'll see. Only time will tell. I'm very interested to see how Trey Lance pans out potentially with the 49ers. This is my last, kind of conversation about Trey Lance for the day. Let me just say right now, I believe in Trey Lance. And doubting Trey Lance, to me, is a bad idea. Because I want to have an honest conversation about Trey Lance just very quickly. As I mentioned earlier, Trey Lance only started 1 year in college. One of the reasons why Justin Herbert crushed it his rookie year was because he started 4 years in Oregon. Deshaun Watson crushed it his rookie year. Had a ton of starts at Clemson. Trey Lance needs reps. He does. And I believe if Trey Lance is given the keys to the 49ers franchise and given a fair shot, I believe he's going to eventually show he can play and he can hang as the NFL starting quarterback in the National Football League. He's big, he's strong, and he's athletic. Trey Lance does a lot of good things when you watch him play. He's just a little inexperienced. And again, I don't know if the 49ers are going to give Trey Lance that opportunity to be that guy just because he's gotten hurt and they've seen what Brock Purdy can do. And Brock Purdy's played a lot more football up to this point as far as games started and things like that between college and the NFL than Trey Lance. And the 49ers, they need someone that's just going to be available and not going to mess this whole ship up. As good as Trey Lance is, his play style can be a little bit polarizing. So I don't know Trey Lance's future, but I'm going out on a limb. I'm not going to doubt Trey Lance. A lot of people have buried Trey Lance, and I really honestly don't know why, because I think that honestly, when it comes to Trey Lance, I would much rather invest in him compared to a guy like Sam Darnold, just because we've seen Sam Darnold in the NFL so many times already. We've seen that experiment. It doesn't work. Trey Lance, we've barely seen him play at all in the NFL. So how are we going to judge Trey Lance when we barely have seen the guy play? That's all I'm saying. And I'm willing to have an honest and fair evaluation and conversation about Trey Lance. And that's what I'm doing right here, just to where I'm not going to doubt the guy. I think Trey Lance, at some point, he's going to surprise some people. It's going to be, a big preseason for him. He's going to have to play well, going to have to beat out Brock Purdy, going to have to beat out Sam Darnold, two guys that have some talent. But I think Trey Lance can get it done. And I think doubting Trey Lance could be a bad mistake for some people. And it even could be a bad mistake for the 49ers down the road, where let's just say, for whatever reason, Trey Lance gets off to a slow start. They bail on Trey Lance. They bring in Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold. And what if Trey Lance goes to another team and crushes it? If you're San Francisco, you're going to potentially look back and say, man, I understand that, we have a small window for a Super Bowl, but if we were maybe just a little bit more patient with Trey Lance, could we have gotten over the hump? That's kind of ultimately how I feel about this whole Trey Lance situation. Again, I could be totally wrong and laugh at this topic, a couple of years from now, but I'm putting my opinion out there. I believe in Trey Lance, and I'm not going to doubt Trey Lance because I'm a believer. I think he's very talented. Okay, everyone, I'm going to take a short break, and when I return, I will get to more NFC West topics. Don't go anywhere. It's Jamon McKinney. You are tuned into the Juice Alert. All right, everyone, I am back. I want to talk some Sam Darnold. I'm just going to be straight up with you guys. I'm not going to waste too much time right here. Sam Darnold is a terrible NFL starting quarterback. I have to say it. It's just the reality, people. I'm writing Sam Darnold off. The 49ers would be foolish to hand him the keys to their franchise. He cannot hold a steady ship. There's going to be turnovers, missed reads, things of that nature, frustrating quarterback play. And what am I basing this off of? I'm basing this off of what I've seen from Sam Darnold all the way back at USC, when everyone was hyping him up saying, oh, he's this generational talent. He's this great prospect. And I was saying, no, time out. I'm not completely sold. And I was right about Sam Darnold in that regard. The guy was overhyped and overrated all the way back in college at USC. And we've seen it in the NFL. Turnovers, missed reads, accuracy issues. He's just all over the place. He is not capable of holding together a steady ship. He's not very accurate. He struggles to read defenses. He has no elite traits. Like, what trait that Sam Darnold presents can you look at and say, oh yeah, that's an elite trait right there? You can't find it, okay? And he's a turnover machine. Go look at the stats where Sam Darnold ranks among starting quarterbacks the last 2 to 3 years. You're going to find he's going to rank dead last in most categories. And in some of these categories, he's like 35th in the NFL. Keep in mind, people, there's only 32 starters. There's only 32, and he's ranked 35th in some of these categories. That's embarrassing. It's not good. And like I said, Sam Darnold was wildly overrated coming out of the University of Southern California. I understand that he had an all-time great performance in the Rose Bowl versus Penn State. That was a great performance, not going to lie to you. But the thing about Sam Darnold is he never fixed his turnover issues, and he never improved upon his pocket presence. When you're turning the football over and you don't have a great feel in the pocket for when defenders are coming from, as far as where they're coming from, you're going to struggle in the NFL. Nothing ever seems smooth with Sam Darnold. He never seems completely in command or in complete control. I don't believe in his poise. And you have to have poise to be a reliable NFL starting quarterback. I just don't think he has it. I've seen it. He doesn't have it. Some guys just don't have it. Right now, today, Sam Darnold is a backup quarterback until I see a sustained body of work. I'm writing Sam Darnold off. I'm so sick and tired of some of these 49ers fans acting like, oh yeah, Sam Darnold, he can help lead the steady ship. He potentially can get us to where we need to be. No, he can't. Sam Darnold is not a good quarterback in the NFL. He's not a good starter. I've seen it multiple times, and I'm writing Sam Darnold off. He's not a good starting quarterback. There's nothing special about his game compared to any starting quarterback in the NFL. Now, again, I understand with the New York Jets and the Carolina Panthers, the situation hasn't always been perfect. And I will say the 49ers have proven they can win with multiple different quarterbacks. But again, we saw a couple of years ago, even when Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt and they had to turn to the likes of Blaine Gabbert and things like that, they could not overcome their deficiencies. This is the situation right here with Sam Darnold. You're never going to be able to overcome his deficiencies. I don't believe in him as a player. I've always felt he was overhyped. And unfortunately, the harsh reality is I don't believe in Sam Darnold. And I think the 49ers will be foolish to hand him the keys to their franchise. I think that it could be a situation where it may start out smoothly for the 49ers if they give the keys to Sam Darnold and they're going to fool themselves. And eventually, Sam Darnold's going to fizzle out and it will be a disappointment. That's how I see this whole Sam Darnold thing panning out if the 49ers were dumb enough to even give him a chance. But that's ultimately how I feel. I don't take any pleasure in saying this, but unfortunately, that's the harsh reality and it's the truth regarding Sam Darnold and his status as an NFL quarterback. So Brock Purdy surprised a lot of people last year in San Francisco. He was the last pick of the NFL draft. He was touted Mr. Irrelevant. And injuries happened. And Brock Purdy got his opportunity. And he shined. He made plays. And he kept the ship steering for as long as he could in San Francisco his rookie season. I have to give Brock Purdy a ton of credit. However, the jury is still out on Brock Purdy. What I mean by this is there's still more he needs to prove in order to be a franchise quarterback. That's the harsh reality that some people aren't willing to admit, but it's the truth. And again, maybe Brock Purdy is a star in the making. I'm not going to rule it out. However, to me, based on what I've seen, the tape does not show that. Because maybe Brock Purdy is a superstar in the making, or maybe, just maybe, Kyle Shanahan's system is so good and the players that the 49ers draft to put in his system are so good that as long as you have at least an average quarterback calling the signals back there and throwing the football, you will win games. Now, again, let me just say this. I think that's the situation right there. I don't think Brock Purdy is a superstar. I think he has the potential to show that he's potentially way better than Jimmy Garoppolo. But again, that bar is not too high because I think Jimmy Garoppolo was an average starter, okay? I will say this, though. If Brock Purdy is the guy, he will take this opportunity and never look back. He'll beat out Sam Darnold. He'll beat out Trey Lance. And the San Francisco 49ers will win a Super Bowl if Brock Purdy's legit. Because the thing about the 49ers is they have all the pieces needed to win a Super Bowl except potentially the quarterback. Now, again, we saw them a couple of years ago get so darn close with Jimmy Garoppolo. They got close a couple of years ago with Colin Kaepernick, and I don't even think that I would put that loss on Colin Kaepernick looking back on things. The 49ers just ran to a better Ravens team, and Colin Kaepernick was very inexperienced, wasn't quite ready. He was a dynamic player that they needed, and it just didn't quite last as long for obvious reasons. But the point is, if Brock Purdy is legit, the 49ers are going to be able to win a Super Bowl because all they need is above average quarterback play in key spots. And I think that if Brock Purdy can provide them with that, then I think he's a franchise quarterback. Because if I'm going to invest in you and say you're a franchise quarterback, you need to show me sustained body of work and you need to be able to elevate under pressure when it matters for me to trust you and say, okay, every single year, we trust this guy to potentially maybe lead us to a Super Bowl. So that's how I feel about Brock Purdy. I think that he's a good young player, potentially has a bright future. But again, the jury is still out, and I cannot wait to see what Brock Purdy can do going forward. You know, the previous 5 seasons or so, it was pretty obvious to me that Aaron Donald was the best defensive player in the NFL and maybe potentially even the best player overall in the National Football League. We're talking about a guy that at one point had a 20-sack season, won 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. And again, Aaron Donald's story, his cement is still wet. He's still playing in the NFL. He could even add to his resume even more going forward. And Aaron Donald was a huge reason the Los Angeles Rams were able to win a Super Bowl. I believe he should have been Super Bowl MVP. I believe he was robbed of that award, but that's neither here nor there. The point I'm going to make right now is that Nick Bosa, to me at least, has officially taken the title from Aaron Donald as the best defensive player in the entire NFL. Let's not forget, people, Nick Bosa, as a rookie in the Super Bowl, was arguably the most dominant player on the field. And every single year Nick Bosa has been healthy, the San Francisco 49ers have made it to the conference championship game. Now, again, it's only been a 2-year sample size, but you get the point. Nick Bosa is a game-changing, generational type of defensive player. The 49ers defense has been the best in the NFL when Nick Bosa has been healthy. And they fell off a cliff a year ago when he got hurt and he wasn't the same guy, because he was missing time. I shouldn't say he wasn't the same guy. He wasn't playing, you get the point. The previous season, like I said, when Nick Bosa got hurt, the 49ers missed the playoffs altogether. Nick Bosa, like I said, generational talent. His motor is incredible. You look at the special traits as far as the speed, the size, the power, the great combination of pass rushing moves. But I think what really separates Nick Bosa is his stamina and his motor, because he comes at you 24/7 nonstop. Right now today, it's pretty obvious to me that Patrick Mahomes is the best player in the NFL. But if you were to say right here, right now, the best player in the NFL not named Patrick Mahomes is Nick Bosa, I will not bat an eye. Nick Bosa is that good. He's on pace to be a Hall of Famer, no doubt about it. He's here to stay. And let's not forget, people, like I said, as a rookie in the Super Bowl, Nick Bosa was arguably the most dominant player on the field. And on the same field, he shared it with Patrick Mahomes. Okay, the 49ers may have lost that Super Bowl, but to me, just looking at guys that had a dominant performance in that Super Bowl, Nick Bosa was the best player on the field that day, no question about it. And that's saying a lot because you had guys like Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, and even Travis Kelce on the field too. And Nick Bosa, to me, was the guy that popped up the screen the most. He was dominant. He was great. I think he's going to have a fantastic career going forward if he continues to stay healthy. I think Nick Bosa officially is the best defensive player in the NFL. I understand that Micah Parsons is legit. You have so many other good defensive players in the NFL. But right now, today, to me, Nick Bosa, because of his overall production and what he means to the San Francisco 49ers defense, I think that you have to give him the title of best defensive player in the NFL. Let me just say this right now. There's a lot of people giving the San Francisco 49ers fans hope this year. It just seems like everyone, kind of like, when they're ranking the top head coaches in the NFL, it just seems like everyone feels they're obligated to put Kyle Shanahan's name down. And I'm not one of those people. Just like I'm not one of those people that feels obligated to tell you people, oh, yeah, 49ers, Super Bowl contenders. Don't see it. And the reason why I don't see it is for one specific reason only. The San Francisco 49ers will not win a Super Bowl until they can get a consistent above average quarterback. That's the harsh reality. I am sick and tired of people pretending as if the 49ers are going to win the Super Bowl. It's not going to happen. They simply do not have the quarterback to get them over the hump until proven otherwise. In Super Bowl 54 versus the Kansas City Chiefs, I could argue the 49ers had the better defensive line, offensive line, running back group, maybe even the weapons, although that was pretty close. The coaching staff, it was pretty close. But looking across the board, they were just as good, if not better than Kansas City. But the Kansas City Chiefs had the better quarterback. They were better at the most important position on the field, and it burned the 49ers because they had an iPhone 5 and the Kansas City Chiefs had an iPhone 14. Jimmy Garoppolo could not get it done. Patrick Mahomes was able to get it done because Patrick Mahomes is legit. All these quarterbacks that you would rank above Jimmy Garoppolo, I'm sorry, like the point I'm trying to make is that the 49ers have not won a Super Bowl since 1995. And you know what they had at that time? An all-time great quarterback in Steve Young. The days of the Trent Dilfers of the world winning a Super Bowl, it's over. And you could say, oh, well, the 49ers can win the Super Bowl. You know, they just need better quarterback play. Until we see better quarterback play in a San Francisco 49ers uniform, we cannot give them the benefit of the doubt. We need to stop pretending that the 49ers are going to win a Super Bowl with average to below average quarterback play because it's not going to be up to snuff. Not versus Patrick Mahomes, not versus Josh Allen, not versus Joe Burrow, not even versus Jalen Hurts. We even saw that story this past year where Jalen Hurts is that guy. And the 49ers, you know, they didn't have a guy. And their team fell apart in the NFC Championship game. We saw that. So, again, as I've said, the San Francisco 49ers are not going to win the Super Bowl until they find an above average starting quarterback. That is the truth, and real NFL football fans know this for a fact. I want to talk about Sean McVay. You know, it's very interesting. Sean McVay actually was born in Dayton, Ohio. And guess who else was born in Dayton, Ohio? Me, Jamon McKinney, a.k.a. the founder of the Juice Alert, right here, right now. But the point is, it's pretty fun to hear that Sean McVay was born in my hometown of Dayton, Ohio. He was already my favorite NFL head coach. And when I saw the other day that he was born in Dayton, Ohio, it just cemented my love for him even more. I love everything Sean McVay stands for. I'm a pretty unbiased person, even when I, you know, evaluate some of my favorite guys. Again, I'm objective. Aaron Rodgers, I've said it multiple times. If he doesn't win a second Super Bowl, he's not going to go down as this great quarterback that everyone perceives him to be, because I think Aaron Rodgers might be forgotten if he doesn't win a second Super Bowl. So when it comes to my favorite people and my favorite players and coaches, I think I'm pretty unbiased. But I don't think I'm being biased in any way by saying this. Sean McVay has a chance to go down as one of the greatest head coaches of all time. I'm talking all-time great head coach. Right now, today, you can even make the argument that Sean McVay is the best head coach in the National Football League. Now, I would probably give that title to Andy Reid for now, just because he's won multiple Super Bowls, and he does a lot of the same things Sean McVay does. You know, both are offensive masterminds. But the thing about Sean McVay is 37 years old. 6 years into his career, 5 winning seasons, 2 Super Bowl appearances, and 1 Super Bowl win. And I would argue the only reason why he did not win his first Super Bowl versus Bill Belichick was because he had a quarterback in Jared Goff that was a limited player. You know, there's a ceiling with Jared Goff. And Jared Goff has not proven he can get over that hump yet. And the minute the Rams upgrade at quarterback and get a better quarterback, you know, in Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay wins the Super Bowl immediately. Now, it'll be interesting to see how the rest of Sean McVay's career as an NFL head coach pans out. Just simply because we don't know how much longer he's going to coach. There's been some, you know, rumors about potentially him maybe wanting to go into broadcasting, maybe do some other stuff outside of football. He seems like a very smart, progressive guy. And I will say, just on the field, as far as coaching with the Rams, the Los Angeles Rams gave up so much to trade for Matthew Stafford. And we saw the effects it had on the team this past year. The Rams were really lacking in depth. And this was the worst coaching year for Sean McVay, in my opinion. But the thing is, I believe in Sean McVay. I believe Sean McVay is going to get the Rams right back on track very, very soon. It may take him another season or two to kind of build up this roster and kind of see what the limitations are, how he needs to improve as a coach. But I believe Sean McVay can definitely make more Super Bowl runs, especially if he potentially leaves the Rams and goes to another situation, because if he's leaving the Rams, he's probably going to go to a better situation. Now, there aren't many situations better than the Rams, because the Rams, they're well run, they draft well, and they have a go all in type of mentality that I like. But I will say right now today, even at 37 years old, you can make the argument that Sean McVay is the smartest head coach in the NFL, just in terms of X's and O's, knowing football IQ as a head coach. Sean McVay is boy genius. There's a reason why people call him that. I mean, his brain, it's out of this world. I would love to have a football conversation with him one day. And one thing I like about Sean McVay is he gets the most out of his players. He makes adjustments, and players love playing for him. And I think that Sean McVay has a chance to go down as a top 5 to 10 head coach of all time. I believe in him that much. I think he's that good. When you're that good this young into your career, the sky is the limit, because McVay's only 37 years old. Okay? He could coach another 40 years in the NFL. And imagine if he does that. Imagine if Sean McVay is a head coach for another 40 years. He's going to win multiple championships. He's going to break multiple coaching records. He's going to win a lot. He's going to be remembered as a slam dunk Hall of Fame head coach, no doubt about it, if he puts his mind to it. That's the only caveat, because I don't know how much Sean McVay wants to coach at this point in his career. I think he's all in this year, but I don't know how all in he will be for the next 5 to 10 years, because in order to be a Hall of Fame head coach, you need sustained success. One Super Bowl victory isn't going to probably do it for you. I mean, Mike McCarthy and Gary Kubiak both won one Super Bowl apiece. Is anyone arguing for them to be in the Hall of Fame? Probably not. So, Sean McVay definitely has work to do, but the sky is the limit, because Sean McVay, to me, is the most talented head coach in the National Football League, and I believe he's on pace to be an all-time great head coach, no doubt about it. We now have to evaluate the Los Angeles Rams from this perspective. Was the Los Angeles Rams going all in to win a Super Bowl led by Matthew Stafford as their quarterback? Was it worth it? Looking back, was the Rams going all in to win a Super Bowl worth it? I believe so. Because here's the thing. Besides this point, I have a great deal of respect for organizations like the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Rams. You want to know why? Because when these teams seize an opportunity to win a championship, they go all in. It's kind of like a girl, is observing guys out there. She's more than likely going to be more attracted to the guy that doesn't play it safe. He's going to shoot his shot head on and say, baby, I'm going to take you out to dinner. You're going to be my girlfriend. Like, stuff like that, I could be totally wrong, but the point is, when you go for it in life, in general, sometimes you strike out. But when you hit, you usually hit big. And whether it be in dating, relationships, finances, stock investing, whatever the case may be, you're going to have to take some risks. And sometimes those risks will burn you. But when you hit, it can be life-changing. And life changed for the Los Angeles Rams when they won that Super Bowl, because they went all in and said, we're not going to settle. We're going to go for it. And they did it. And I have so much respect for them for doing that. In life, you got to take risks. And the teams and people that are taking big swings, Golden State Warriors, they became a dynasty by adding Kevin Durant. no coincidence. Teams like the Green Bay Packers that play it safe, that are just content with competing every single year, and they never quite go all in, I gotta lose some respect for you. I really do, because you're playing it safe. And as an organization, the message to my fans should be, we're doing everything possible that we can to bring a championship home. We don't just care about competing every year. We care about being that team at the end of the season. If you have a great coaching staff and front office in place, your roster can get retooled. The Denver Broncos, with Peyton Manning, I don't blame them at all for going all in. The only problem with the Denver Broncos is they just haven't found a quarterback outside of Peyton Manning of recent. As a fan, though, when I'm observing these teams, I'm putting my faith and trust in a set organization to do the best thing possible to maximize winning. When it comes to Jared Goff, the Rams could have easily settled. Jared Goff is good. He makes plays every now and then, but the Rams said, nah, we're good. Let's bail. Let's upgrade, and let's win the whole thing. I don't care about the fact that the Rams were below 500 this past year. I don't. You want to know why? Because they went all in to win a Super Bowl. Now, again, I don't think the Super Bowl is going to shatter them all that much, because when you have a stable head coach, a stable front office, and you draft well, you can get back on your feet. I expect the Rams organization to put themselves back on the map eventually, and I don't think the Rams going all in to win a Super Bowl, I don't think it'll be as costly as some people will think. That's my opinion, though. I want to address Matthew Stafford. When Matthew Stafford was traded to the Los Angeles Rams, oh man, I was so happy. Because I claimed right then and there at some point during the Sean McVay and Matthew Stafford era, the Los Angeles Rams will win a Super Bowl. And they won that thing immediately. Year number one. Matthew Stafford, Sean McVay, boom. Super Bowl appearance, Super Bowl victory. It was truly a great thing to see. Matthew Stafford coming to the Rams and immediately winning. And Matthew Stafford had one of the best playoff runs, personally, that I've seen from a quarterback from start to finish. 70% completion percentage, 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions during that run with a 108 passer rating and 4-0 record. Matthew Stafford was the number 1 overall pick in his draft class years ago for a reason. He's a wildly talented quarterback. And a lot of people unjustly labeled Matthew Stafford a loser because he could not overcome bad management, bad rosters, and bad coaching constantly in Detroit. And guess what? The minute Matthew Stafford found a stable situation with the Rams and bettered himself, he joined a better organization, and he joined an organization that was going to elevate him, he immediately won a Super Bowl. Matthew Stafford has nothing left to prove in his career. He has nothing left to prove. He proved he could win a Super Bowl. The first season, he got a stable situation. And not to mention, in Detroit, Matthew Stafford pulled the Detroit Lions out of a lot of mess at times. Go look at the fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives that Matthew Stafford has had the past 10 to 12 years. He ranks among the top of the NFL in fourth quarter comebacks and game-winning drives. When the Detroit Lions have been in these games and they've had a chance to close the deal late, Matthew Stafford usually came through. And Matthew Stafford, he put up borderline Hall of Fame numbers with the Lions. And then with the Rams, he immediately crushes it, has a great season, maybe arguably his best season as a pro, and he immediately wins a Super Bowl. I don't think Matthew Stafford has anything left to prove. Matthew Stafford exposed the Detroit Lions organization for what they have been for so long. Unstable, can't get their act together, at times not very talented, and Stafford goes to a better situation and immediately wins. It was such a beautiful thing to see. I'm so happy Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl. He has nothing left to prove in his career up to this point. So let me evaluate Matthew Stafford a little bit more closely right here. Is Matthew Stafford a Hall of Famer? I'm going to say no. However, Matthew Stafford is a lot closer than people think. When people bring up the name Phillip Rivers and Matt Ryan, two quarterbacks of this generation that have put up very good numbers and have had pretty long careers, some people say Hall of Fame worthy. I'm not one of those people. I believe Matthew Stafford actually is better than both of those guys because Matthew Stafford, he has a Super Bowl victory, and the numbers between those quarterbacks are pretty close. So when the numbers are close, I have to look at the talent and the results. And the results show me that Matthew Stafford has a Super Bowl championship and Matt Ryan and Phillip Rivers don't. And just looking at Matthew Stafford as a talent, he's better than Matt Ryan. And he's better than Phillip Rivers. He has a better arm. That's just point blank, period. It's pretty clear to me Stafford's more talented than these guys. Maybe you disagree with me, but to me, I think that's a bad evaluation on your part if you disagree. Okay, but here's the thing. My issue with Matthew Stafford's resume is that it's very good, but it's simply just not quite all-time great. It doesn't stand out enough because you only have one Pro Bowl appearance, you have no first-team All-Pro selections, 0 MVP awards, and if you have 0 MVP awards, I don't think you've been finishing in the top 5 in MVP voting that much either. In fact, Matthew Stafford has never finished top 5 in MVP voting, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but the point is, Matthew Stafford has yet to win an NFL MVP, and not to mention, he does have a below 500 career record. Now, do I believe he should have more Pro Bowl appearances? Yes. I do think that there were some years where Stafford had very good seasons and he was overlooked. A prime example was even with the Rams recently, where he threw for 40 touchdowns on the season and he was not voted into the Pro Bowl. I don't know why, but it just seems like always Matthew Stafford is a little bit underrated by the media and by fans. But the thing about Matthew Stafford is he's 35 years old right now. He will need to continue to add to his resume and his numbers. And ideally, make one more deep postseason run. And we'll see what happens. Because his resume to me right now just simply doesn't stand out compared to guys he's going to be compared to. When you're talking about a quarterback making the Hall of Fame, we're talking about the ultimate winners. And we're talking about the most talented guys to ever play the position. Matthew Stafford is super talented, but I don't think he's quite, in that conversation for, okay, he's one of the 5 or 10 most talented quarterbacks overall ever. I don't think he's quite there. And while he has won a Super Bowl, the winning across the board has not been consistent enough. Whether you want to blame Detroit or not, that's up to you. But that's the bottom line. I'm not trying to, make exceptions because I have to look at the results how they are. And I think Matthew Stafford can get there in the Hall of Fame, but he will need to have a little bit more of a finishing act the final couple of years of his career with the Rams. He is 35 years old. His body is kind of breaking down, so I don't know how much more good football Matthew Stafford ultimately has left, but we'll see what happens. Is Aaron Donald the greatest defensive player ever? Of my generation, I could argue Aaron Donald is the best football player overall ever. As just far as his generation of people, I'm talking about the likes of J.J. Watt, Aaron Rodgers, Calvin Johnson, obviously Tom Brady, Adrian Peterson, maybe even now Patrick Mahomes, although Patrick Mahomes isn't necessarily quite in Aaron Donald's era per se. I mean, I guess you could maybe make the comparison. I don't know. But Aaron Donald, when he was going right, was arguably the best football player in the entire world. And Aaron Donald has put himself in a category where when it's all said and done, he will be one of the 10 greatest defensive players ever. He's already there right now. But some would say he might potentially be the greatest defensive player ever. And he's going to push that to be a conversation when it's all said and done, in my opinion. Because when I look at the likes of Tom Brady, Jerry Rice, and Lawrence Taylor, those to me are the 3 clear-cut best football players ever in terms of what they did on the field, their talent, and their accomplishments, and longevity as well. After that right there, I could see Aaron Donald realistically jumping ahead of anyone else. Now, it's going to be hard for him to pass Lawrence Taylor. It's going to be hard for him to pass the likes of Jerry Rice and Tom Brady for maybe greatest football player ever. But I've said in the past, Aaron Donald is the one guy that when he's going right, I would rate him a 99 overall in Madden. For sure, no doubt about it. There's a couple other players I would probably say the same for, but that's some pretty big time praise, I would say. And Aaron Donald's performance in Super Bowl 56 was nothing short of amazing. We're looking at a guy in Aaron Donald, 9 years in the NFL, 9 Pro Bowls, been a Pro Bowler every single year, 7 first team All-Pro selections, and 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards that he has won. Over 100 sacks. Keep in mind, that's as a defensive tackle. It's much more harder to get sacks in the interior as opposed to rushing off the edge. Right now, to me, the short list of best defensive players ever should be Lawrence Taylor, Deion Sanders, Reggie White, Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, and Bruce Smith, along with the likes of Ronnie Lott, Aaron Donald, and J.J. Watt as well. So when we look at these guys, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys that I mentioned. So right now today, Aaron Donald's already one of the 10 greatest defensive players ever. When it's all said and done, because Aaron Donald is only 32 years old right now, he still has a chance to add to his resume. When it's all said and done, I could see Aaron Donald having a better resume than the likes of an Ed Reed or a Bruce Smith. Potentially Ray Lewis. That's a hot take for some people, but he can make that a conversation. Reggie White, we'll see. Deion Sanders, we'll see. Lawrence Taylor, we'll see. Probably not, because I think that he's the greatest ever to ever do it as far as defensive players. But I think Aaron Donald, when it's all said and done, he will at least push the conversation towards himself for being greatest defensive player ever, because he's that special, he's that talented, his motor's insane, his combination of speed and power is really, really unmatched. And I think one of the reasons why Aaron Donald was overlooked looking back when he was in college was simply because he's a little bit undersized. But I think he actually uses that to his advantage, because he's very, very bendy and very, very good at just kind of maneuvering through those offensive tackles. And I think that the fact that he's a little bit undersized actually helps him, because he's just so big and strong, there's no wasted movement. So, to me, if someone were to tell me, Aaron Donald is the greatest defensive player that I've ever seen, I again, you won't get a combative argument from me. Now, again, I might bring up Lawrence Taylor. I might bring up Reggie White. I might bring up Deion. But Aaron Donald has to be in that conversation. And he will force his way into that conversation if he's not there already down the road. So I remember watching the Super Bowl between the Bengals and Rams, and it still bothers me to this day that Aaron Donald was not named Super Bowl MVP. Aaron Donald was robbed of Super Bowl MVP. And Cooper Kupp was amazing. The guy that actually won the award. Cooper Kupp, he was amazing. 8 catches, 2 touchdowns. But in that game was won because the defensive line of the Los Angeles Rams overwhelmed the Cincinnati Bengals. And Aaron Donald was the key piece to that puzzle. 2 sacks in the game, 2 tackles for a loss, 3 quarterback hits. It's arguably the best defensive performance I've ever seen on a big stage. And when it comes to Aaron Donald not getting Super Bowl MVP, these things matter when we're counting legacy points here. Because Lawrence Taylor, he's got a Super Bowl MVP as a defensive player. Ray Lewis, same thing with him. I just hate the fact that Aaron Donald doesn't have one right now. Now, could he get one in the future? Absolutely. But it's one of those things where if he wins one down the road, I'm going to argue he should have more because I felt that he was robbed in that performance. I felt that he was undoubtedly the best player on that field and the most valuable player on that field that night. And again, it was a great performance. I'm sure Aaron Donald is going to cherish that Super Bowl ring forever, as he should. But Aaron Donald, to me, should have won defensive. What am I saying here? Wow, defensive player of the year in the Super Bowl. I am so out of whack right here. Let me correct myself. Aaron Donald should have been Super Bowl MVP, and to me, there was no question about it. Super Bowl 56, the best player on that football field between the Bengals and the Rams. It was no doubt about it, Aaron Donald. That's how I feel. Cooper Kupp, let's talk about him. I think Cooper Kupp is starting to become underrated, oddly enough. And it's crazy that I'm saying that because I just made the argument that I don't think Cooper Kupp deserved Super Bowl MVP over Aaron Donald. I'm going to stick to that opinion. But heading into the season, a lot of people are saying, Justin Jefferson might be the best wide receiver in the NFL. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams. And those guys are great, but why is everyone seeming to forget about Cooper Kupp? Cooper Kupp is an elite wide receiver. He's a great route runner. He's great at creating yards after the catch. This guy constantly is beating tight man-to-man coverage. And not too long ago, Cooper Kupp won the Triple Crown, where he led the league in yards, receptions, and touchdowns. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that right there, where you can't have a better year other than leading the league in yards, catches, and touchdowns. Again, that season was incredible. And the crazy thing about that is that Cooper Kupp was on pace just this past year to duplicate it. And I know some people are going to say, Cooper Kupp's only had one great productive season. Flatly not true. Cooper Kupp, before he won the Triple Crown, he proved he could be a 1,000-yard receiver before that. He's had a 1,000-yard season way before he blew up. And that was with Jared Goff as his quarterback. And he also had to share targets with likes of Brandon Cooks, Robert Woods. The fact that Cooper Kupp had a 1,000-yard season when he had Jared Goff at times, who was a little bit limited as a player, and he had to share targets with the likes of Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods. It also was in an offense that was run first, led by Todd Gurley. The fact that he had over 1,000 yards, to me, is pretty impressive. And I think Cooper Kupp is becoming a little bit underappreciated. I believe Cooper Kupp is an elite wide receiver. To me right now, the 5 best wide receivers in the entire NFL, in no particular order: Tyreek Hill, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Jamar Chase, and Devontae Adams. If I'm going to put those guys in order, I'm going to say number 1, Tyreek Hill. Number 2, Justin Jefferson. Number 3, Devontae Adams. Number 4, Jamar Chase. Number 5, Cooper Kupp. Those are your top 5 wide receivers heading into the 2023 season. I feel strong and confident about it. And shame on you people out there for not ranking Cooper Kupp as a top 5 wide receiver in the game, because I find it very hard to find 5 wide receivers that I'd rather have. So when it comes to the discussion of, what Cooper Kupp is as a player, a lot of people point to the fact that he's a slot wide receiver mainly, and that's fair. He lines up in the slot a lot, although I do think that Cooper Kupp, if he were to be on the outside at wide receiver a lot more, he would still win those one-on-one matchups. But there's been some comparisons of Cooper Kupp to Wes Welker, who some people believe is the best slot wide receiver of all time. I disagree. And to me, there's really no such thing as the best slot wide receiver ever, because if Tyreek Hill played in the slot for his entire career and he stayed healthy and got a decent amount of targets, he'd be crushing it. And there'd be no question that, Tyreek Hill, probably the best slot wide receiver ever. But the thing is, Tyreek Hill is so great that he does not play all of his snaps in the slot. Because he's so great, it would be foolish for you to just utilize him in the slot. And that's kind of the situation with Cooper Kupp, to where he doesn't just line up in the slot, he lines up on the outside too. And let's just think about this. If Jerry Rice played in the slot for his entire career, do you not think that he would murder those matchups? I think he would. So when you say, best slot wide receiver of all time, it's a very dumb conversation to have, because we don't know who's the true best slot wide receiver ever, because the slot is all about matchups. It's not just where a guy plays 24/7, unless you're a guy like Wes Welker, who kind of has a limited skill set, and that's where you're going to stay the whole time. But to me right now, Cooper Kupp is way better than Wes Welker. Way better. He's faster. He's better at getting open consistently. He has better hands. He's a better route runner. He plays with more physicality. Everything about Cooper Kupp that he does, to me, is better than Wes Welker. And Wes Welker had some great seasons with the Patriots, very consistent player, and was a very productive guy in the slot. But to me, the guy that's kind of playing in the slot the most these days, that's a notable player, a.k.a. Cooper Kupp, he's a better football player than Wes Welker all day, every day. So if you're going to make the argument for who's the best slot wide receiver ever, put Cooper Kupp in that conversation. And maybe Cooper Kupp isn't there for you right now. Maybe you think that he needs to put together more productive seasons. If you believe that's the case, that's fine. But guess what? He's going to do it. Cooper Kupp is going to put together another 4 to 5 great seasons if he stays healthy. I firmly believe that. And if anyone should be given the title of just best pure slot wide receiver ever, no matter who you put in that spot and give that title to, Cooper Kupp gives them a run for their money. I want to end the show by talking about the Seattle Seahawks and the Arizona Cardinals, but I'll start off with the Cardinals. The Arizona Cardinals have failed Kyler Murray in the big picture. I think Kyler Murray is starting to become a tad bit underrated. I understand some people knock him for his attitude. They question his intangibles. I understand that. If you're in that boat, got no problem with it, because those are some questions that Kyler Murray brings to the table as far as his attitude, his work ethic, his intangibles. Like I said, I'm taking Kyler Murray over a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I believe the Cardinals have failed Kyler Murray in the big picture. And Kyler Murray might get traded away this next season. And to be honest with you, if I'm Kyler Murray, I maybe wouldn't mind it, because it seems like maybe the grass could be greener on the other side, because the Cardinals, gave Cliff Kingsbury the keys to their franchise, and it looked good for a while, but it's very clear that Cliff Kingsbury, he fizzled out very quickly. He was very in over his head, couldn't make adjustments. I think he lost the locker room ultimately. And I think the Cardinals could have done a better job of giving Kyler Murray a better head coach. And let's not forget that Kyler Murray has work ethic issues, according to some people in that organization. And I think Cliff Kingsbury was kind of just a yes man for Kyler Murray. I think Kyler Murray could have benefited from having a coach that would hold him accountable a lot better. Because I don't think Cliff Kingsbury, he doesn't come across as that intimidating. I don't think Kyler Murray ever truly was intimidated by Cliff Kingsbury. Now, you shouldn't be intimidated by your head coach to where, oh, I'm scared to talk to this guy. But the intimidation factor comes from a level of respect to where, oh man, if I mess up, coach is going to kill me. Maybe not literally, but he's going to chew me out. I'm going to have consequences. And the Cardinals never had that dynamic between Cliff Kingsbury and Kyler Murray. Not to mention the offensive line isn't very good. The Cardinals have whiffed on several draft picks. Like, they've just whiffed on several key name players. And the defense isn't very good. And when you can't block anybody up front and you can't stop anybody on defense, then you're not going to compete. And when it comes to their division currently, the Arizona Cardinals, to me, have no shot of competing for really anything noteworthy in their division because the Rams, to me, are clearly ahead of them, the 49ers, and the Seahawks. All three organizations, better front office, more well-run, more talented players, and much more stability at the top. And they just have their act together a lot better. And I will say, the Cardinals did do a decent job of putting wide receivers around Kyler Murray. But the thing is, a guy like Andy Isabella, who they had high hopes for, he wasn't very good. You know, Marquise Hollywood Brown, you know, he's good, but is he great? I'm not so sure. DeAndre Hopkins, their big free agent signing, eventually wanted out. They couldn't retain him. So, again, when it comes to the Kyler Murray Arizona Cardinals situation, I think Kyler Murray is elevating the Cardinals more than the Cardinals are elevating him. And that's saying a lot because the Cardinals, you know, they've had some success. They at one point got to the playoffs with Kyler Murray. But let me just say this right now. Kyler Murray would be a lot better off with without the Cardinals if he's given a much more stable position to succeed. We'll see if the Cardinals can build around the likes of Caleb Williams or whoever potentially their next quarterback is, just because they potentially are going to trade away Kyler Murray if things don't go well and draft a guy like Caleb Williams. That's not going to solve everything. Meanwhile, if Kyler Murray goes to a team, I can see that team taking off because I think Kyler Murray is a special talent. But in the end, it's a very sad situation in Arizona where I thought at first they were building around Kyler. It was getting better and better. They were potentially going to make a run for a Super Bowl eventually one day, but I don't see it. And the Cardinals, they have a lot of work to do, and ultimately, they have failed Kyler Murray in the big picture as far as the most important things. The most important things being offensive line protection, stability at head coach, and stability in the front office. And to me, the front office, it's a little bit of a mixed bag. The coaching is not there, and the defense and the offensive line up front just really isn't there. And it's kind of sad because I think Kyler Murray has a chance to be a special player. Unfortunately, he's gotten injured, and he may never be the same player anymore. But, you know, we'll have to see. But I think the Cardinals definitely have not done Kyler Murray any favors up to this point. Last and final topic of the day. Jaxon Smith. Whoa, man. Woo-hoo! Man, I cannot talk today, but I'm a little tired. I'll give myself a little bit of slack, but man, I whiffed on saying that name right there. Let me start over, people. Jaxon Smith-Njigba will thrive in the NFL and with the Seattle Seahawks. And it's very baffling to me that teams like the Green Bay Packers, the New England Patriots, and the New York Jets did not draft Jaxon Smith-Njigba. because I felt those teams could have used a wide receiver to help improve their team. And Jaxon Smith-Njigba was arguably the best wide receiver in his draft class. He's very, very smooth. A little bit of a finesse player, I will say. So that's one question I have for Jaxon in the NFL is, can he beat physical NFL defensive backs consistently? But to me, I believe he can, because what I saw on tape is Jaxon Smith-Njigba just has a knack for getting open. And he can really stretch out the defense. He's a great deep threat. He will make big plays down the field. And boy, oh boy, let me tell you, if you pair him with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett with an improved Geno Smith throwing him the football, I think Jaxon Smith-Njigba is going to do wonders as a playmaker and an X factor for the Seattle Seahawks. I firmly believe that. I believe he's going to have a very good NFL career just because he's a great route runner, doesn't always just rely solely on his athleticism to get open. And that's usually where you see successful wide receivers, is guys that don't have to run a 4-3 in order to get open. They get open based off of skill set, technique, studying film, and great route running ability. And again, I think Jaxon Smith-Njigba's overall athleticism and just athletic traits are underrated as well. And the Seattle Seahawks, you can't think of a much better situation, because let's just say for whatever reason in a couple of years, DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett aren't on the team anymore. Now you have a guy in Jaxon Smith-Njigba who you can lock up and build around for the future. It's kind of like the Green Bay Packers didn't realize that, okay, there could be a world potentially where Davante Adams doesn't play in a Green Bay Packers uniform anymore, and they got burned. You can never have enough great wide receivers, in my opinion. And I think that it was an excellent move by the Seattle Seahawks, snagging Jaxon Smith-Njigba and getting him in the NFL draft. And let me just tell you right now, I know the Chargers are sick to their stomach that the Seattle Seahawks were one pick ahead of them and they didn't get their hands on Jaxon Smith-Njigba. And the Seattle Seahawks are a great destination for Jaxon just because we saw DK Metcalf be this super talented guy that I actually argued was the best wide receiver in his draft class. And that's proven to be a pretty good take by me when you look at it, although Terry McLaurin probably is better than DK Metcalf at this point. But the point is, I felt DK would be awesome, and he's been awesome. But a big reason why he was awesome so well out the gate was because the Seattle Seahawks allowed DK Metcalf to do the things that he does well, which is run by people and stretch the defense. And that's what Jaxon Smith-Njigba can do. They're going to get the ball in his hands, let him make plays, and they're going to allow him to stretch defenses and beat teams over the top. And I believe it is a great combination. I can't wait to see what Jaxon Smith-Njigba does with the Seattle Seahawks and as far as his NFL career is concerned. Well, everyone, that's pretty much all I have today. This was a long show, but I'm happy that we all were able to enjoy this show together. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm Jamal McKinney. Have a God bless day and peace out.